Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Highruler, and today's video is going to be talking about Helldivers 2 and the internet phenomena around it. I'm going to call it that because there's a lot of talk, not just about Helldivers 2, but the internet's reaction to it. And I've been seeing this a lot within the circles that I run, but I'm also seeing this now kind of being discussed on the subreddit, as well as varying other communities that talk about Helldivers 2. And it's been interesting to see how things are going on because for as good as Helldivers 2 is, and it's great and I love it, and I think the gameplay is a lot of fun, it hasn't been free of its own issues, most notably with their servers, whether that's logging in or matchmaking. It is a victim of its own success because it seems like for a lot of criticism that games get, it seems like Helldivers has been absolved of all that criticism, so to speak. And I think while that can be true, there are some factors that go into the internet's kind of reaction to certain games and how things are perceived. And let's talk about that a little bit. So Helldivers 2 has had a cult of personality form around it, and everyone is seemingly enjoying not just the game, but the atmosphere that the game provides. You see a lot of people on social media talking about spreading democracy and freedom and liberty, and people have really bought into the whole, I guess, the way the whole thing kind of works, right? And I've talked about this before in a prior video that when it comes to a game being successful, it's not just about the game being successful, but it's about how the community can form around it, right? For anyone who doesn't know Deep Rock Galactic, you can talk about Deep Rock Galactic anywhere on the internet, and one of the things that people will say to you is rock and stone, right? It's just one of those things, and Helldivers 2 has really kind of done something similar to Deep Rock Galactic, and people have really bought in. But in doing so, if you're on the outside looking in, it can just look weird because it seems like for a lot of the things that other live service games get criticized for, Helldivers 2 has just not had any of that whatsoever. So let's talk about all the way to the beginning, right? For you guys who aren't very aware of Suicide Squad has been kind of raked over the coals when it comes to a lot of the stuff that they have done, right? Most notably, before the game even launched, it didn't launch with a review copy. Now, most games will launch with a review copy, but a lot of people took exception to Suicide Squad not doing that, and a lot of people were very upset. Then we go to Helldivers 2, and that didn't launch with a review copy, and not a lot of people were upset with that. And I think when you kind of lay out the side-by-side points here between Suicide Squad and Helldivers, we really have to focus in on about 4 different things here in order to kind of understand what happened with these two games. So to me, there's 4 big talking points here, and those are going to be the price, the perception, the reputation, and just the overall community feel of that game, right? Which you can kind of sum up the last 2 points into that, right? So when we look at Suicide Squad versus Helldivers, they are 2 totally different games with 2 totally different price points, right? Suicide Squad is a AAA game marketed as such and priced as such, depending on where you are. Myself in Canada, it was $100 to over $100 when it came to Deluxe Edition, but Helldivers 2 is a $40 game, and then you kind of make that where it is depending on your local currency. These games are priced very differently. And because of that, I think a lot of the time, the reception to a lot of the issues can actually be just dumbed down to how much should I spend on the game, right? Now, that isn't to say a $40 game isn't absolved of all criticism, but I think people are much more quick to jump on an issue with a game if they spend $100 for it versus a game that may be $40 or $45, right? Look at the way a lot of people handled the Power World stuff when that came out. And honestly, that had a lot of issues with the servers, right? Depending on what kind of server you played on, the server could have rollbacks, it could not save. There were a lot of issues, but people were pretty patient with that. Just like people are pretty patient with Helldivers 2, which is the perception of the game, right? When it comes to the perception of the game, this is where a lot of the time we're talking about that community engagement, that fun, the things that people are posting about. For better or for worse, Helldivers 2 has had great perception on the outside looking in. A lot of people are talking about how much fun it is. A lot of people are talking about how great it is. And that can actually do a lot in order to kind of make people feel better about kind of the things going on. Versus when you you have a game that's being talked about very negatively, it can kind of pull people into that negative headspace where they're kind of like, wow, this really sucks. And it kind of creates that downward spiral, right? I think a lot of people have experienced this before in their lives, whether it's through something that's happened to you or whether it's something you see on the outside. It's very easy to join in on the negativity when you see it, but it's also very easy to join on the positivity in lieu of the negativity, even though negativity is happening with the launch issues and the matchmaking issues and the server issues, right? Perception plays a big key in how we kind of perceive things and then how we respond to things. And then it's reputation. Let's talk about the reputation, because I think this one is also going to be big, and I think a lot of people aren't going to like this part of the video here. Rocksteady is known for the Batman games. They're known for the free flow combat, and they're known for making these cool Batman games that people love. For better or for worse, that's not what they wanted to do anymore. They wanted to move into a different realm, a different sphere, try something different. And I actually like that. I like when creative studios take risks and try something different. But for a lot of people, they don't want that, right? So what happened there? Their reputation kind of tanked once Suicide Squad came out. It hit everything that people didn't like, right? It's the live service, it's the game as the service, has the battle pass, has everything, right? But a lot of the time, those issues are only secondary to what their main core issue is, right? And that main core issue is that Rocksteady didn't make a Batman game. Versus the reputation for Arrowhead Game Studios, it's a small indie company. They make Helldivers 1, which was a very cult classic kind of game. And then they kind of took that formula and actually just put it into a supercharged engine and gave us Helldivers 2, right? The reputation and that perception are going to be different there. And I think that's one of the key components that we have to look at when it comes to what's going on here. And then to tie it all together, it's every single thing that has happened between now and then. People are more forgiving when it comes to AA games that have issues, even though it may be published by PlayStation. And don't get me wrong, I think the PlayStation brand, when it comes to social media, definitely has a little bit of impact to, maybe depending on who you are, a lot of impact on the way people are reacting. But I think a lot of this is just the perception, the reputation, and the price of what people pay for these games. When it comes to what's happening right now, we are starting to see a little bit of pushback when it comes to a lot of the issues. When it comes to the server issues, the matchmaking issues, people are now starting to question what is going on. And I think a lot of people are wondering, when will this be fixed? The scalable issues here are really interesting, and game devs have actually weighed in on Twitter, because it isn't just as simple as putting more servers out there. I'm going to put this here for you guys to look at from Christopher Barrett of Bungie, who works on Destiny. He put out a great kind of analogy here to kind of dumb it down for people like us, you know, myself included there, for people who don't really know. And I think right now, the internet is very much so kind of being nice to the Helldivers community and being nice to the Helldivers developers and just being nice all around. But the longer this goes on, I think we'll start to see a lot of that goodwill waste away, because people just want to play the games. I'm always going to defend the consumers and defend people to make smart choices and to buy games that they want. But at a certain point in time, you also got to call a spade here as well. They are suffering from their own success, and I think nobody on the planet could have predicted this amount of success for Helldivers 2. But I think at a certain point in time, we just have to understand that, yeah, like, people have paid money for this game and they can't play it, and I think that's not cool. And I understand that it's different between their game being so successful that they can't scale quickly enough versus a game that has bugs and is locking people out. And I think that perception too is very different. I think if Suicide Squad was having the issue that they couldn't just have so many servers available for people to log in, I think that would be a very different conversation versus, you know, if Helldivers was the one having all sorts of bugs. They are having bugs, but people couldn't log into bugs versus the success. I think the whole framing of the conversation plays a big, vital impact into what is happening. And I think we can't ignore the context of these two games. There's a reputation at stake, there's a price point at stake, there's perception, and there is exactly what is happening. One game is having players still locked out 2.5 weeks later from launch. The other game just can't scale quickly enough, and that's kind of what's happening here. Everything else, I think you can kind of boil down to personal opinion, but it really does seem like at a certain point in time, either you're on board with what is happening or you're not, and I think that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But I definitely do think that over time, if this isn't fixed some way or another, we are going to see the internet kind of snap back, and it's just a matter of time, right? But with that being said, just want to talk about it because I think this is a big, important issue, and it really does seem like the internet is being nice right now. It might be one of the only times we see the internet be nice right now, so why don't we bask in this a little bit? But with that being said, if you want more Helldivers 2 content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave a nice little comment, and I'll see you guys next time. As always, enjoy the rest of your day and night. Take care of yourselves. Later, guys.